Let's go.
Oh, I was
Thank
going to
you.
say,
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
yep.
Um, so we're going to go ahead and dive in so we can make the most of the time we have and your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad you're here. For those of you I don't know, I'm the Association Customer Success Director here at Web Scribble, and I've been here about a year. I cannot believe it. Time has flown. It's been a lot of fun. Prior to coming to Web Scribble, I was with the American Society of Association Executives, and as part of my work, I helped run Association Career HQ, which is the career center that ASAE offers for the association sector. So career management, talent management, and near and dear to my heart. And I had the opportunity when I was there to use metrics to really ensure that Association Career HQ was as fruitful as possible for the organization and helped ASAE deliver on its mission and really serve the existing members, but also to attract and engage prospective members as well. And I really saw firsthand how communicating key metrics had an impact. We were able to report to our board, both the subsidiary board and ASA's main board. They were very interested, and as well as the executive team. So I'm excited to talk with you about the topic today. And my colleague Josh is joining me today. Josh Simon. Josh, I know this topic is important to you as well. So tell us more about that and about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh Slyman, and I'm Director of Product Strategy here at Web Scribble. And really that is intended to sort of help put some strategy and some thought behind how we position the product, right, for our key stakeholders, users, associations, and then of course the employers as well. And prior to my time here at Web Scribble, I was on the strategic services team at Higher Logic, helping associations, working directly with associations and trade groups to use that platform to drive engagement. And so one of the things that I realized in that work and my work here at Web Scribble was the impact of metrics and being able to uncover insights and being able to analyze some of these metrics and use them to make decisions and to fight your case, so to speak, right, for particular positioning or funding or justification for a given goal or initiative. And so it's really been something that, honestly, having been a horrible math student, I never thought that metrics and numbers would be such a big role, a big part of my job. But it really is. It really has become something that's quite important to me. So anyway, sorry, that's me in a nutshell.
I love that, Josh. I have to laugh because I too was more of a language arts person. And it is amazing, though, how numbers are everywhere. But we're going to be talking about using those numbers to tell stories too. And that is tapping into the language and the creative side. So that is awesome. So we want to kick off with an invitation to you all. And here it is. We really want you to engage with us, ask questions, engage with the content, post your comments. If you have a reaction, if you think something's interesting or something's missing or whatever it is, please post that in the chat. Network with each other as well. And we've got a couple of channels available for you to ask questions and do that engagement with us. The one is the meeting chat, and you all know by now well how to use that. We're going to be monitoring that. And the second is a tool called Slido, where you can post anonymously. And for networking, please use the chat so everyone can see that. And you can put in who you are, your organization, and if you're open to people contacting you, pop in your LinkedIn link, because that is something we know clients have been asking us for, so take advantage of that. So here's a bit about Slido. It's a great tool if you're not familiar with it. So you can post here anonymously or identified, it's your choice. And to get there, all you need to do is go to the web address, slido.com, and enter the code. Or you can scan the QR code and we'll leave it up for a minute. And once you're in, just keep it open. And that way you can always get to it and you can see what's been posted as well. So we're going to give a minute and we're going to let you engage right away. So if you are in the Slido, can you use the reaction or the chat just to let us know that you're seeing it and in it? Looks like maybe we've got some folks posting emails. That's great. Okay, so unless I hear from you otherwise, I am going to move on. So we want to kick off things with a question for you. And again, another opportunity to get right in and engage with this content. So when you think about Career Center metrics, what challenges and opportunities come to mind for you? And if you could put that in the chat, it can be one word, it can be a guess is fine if you're not sure. Let us know what you're thinking in terms of the challenges and opportunities when you think about Career Center metrics. We're going to give you a minute to type in and see what's on your mind today as you think about this topic. Lack of engagement. Thank you, Eli. That is absolutely a challenge.
Yep.
That we know, in particular with offerings that associations have, including the Career Center, can be that way. Great one. Anybody else? Feel free. I'll give you another minute. Okay. All right. Well, while you're thinking about that, we're going to move on to a poll. And Cheryl, thank you. The challenge is knowing the trends before we get to that poll, knowing the trends, where jobs are being posted, where are members applying. So you're really talking about those trends related to your particular talent market. And there are layers of trends, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. So thank you. That is definitely an opportunity and a challenge both, right? So
Sure.
here's the poll. And we are going to maybe bring up this poll. Let's see. Here we go. Love it when it works. And I'm going to launch that. You should be seeing it pop up on your screen. And the question is, do you track any Career Center metrics today? Ooh, we are half and half so far. All right. Some do, some don't. Josh, what comes to mind when you see this? And maybe you can't. So just we're
no,
running
no,
57,
I
43.
can.
Good.
I think well, the thing that first comes to mind is those who aren't looking at the metrics at all. We're missing an opportunity to factor that into our engagement. You know what I mean? When we're sort of looking at this global ecoscape we've created for engagement, we want to make sure that we're accounting for all of those touch points. And when we look at that sort of global engagement number, and then of course, great to see that people are using the metrics. I think that's a great start.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't sure, and so I'm excited about that. That is really great to see that we've got some folks doing it. And remember, if you're not, but others on this call are, or this conversation are, please post and say, hey, I'd like to learn what you're doing, because it's a great networking opportunity. So thank you for that participation. We appreciate you jumping right in. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about these questions. What, why first, and then what, where, and how. And the things we want to talk about are around, why does this matter? Why should you know your numbers? What numbers should you even be focusing on? Where are they? Sometimes that's the hardest part. And then how to read them and how to use them. And the content that we're going to share reflects my experience, Josh's experience, and the experience of our larger Web Scribble team about best practices when it comes to Career Center key metrics and reporting. And as we run through the content, we want you to know that the information you're going to hear is truly applicable for associations of all staff sizes, budget sizes, membership types. You're going to be able to walk away with something that you can use, even though we know your context is unique. You each come from unique organizations. And so hopefully this sounds good and in line with your expectations. You can use Zoom reactions or the chat or Slido if there's something else or additional you want to cover. So with that, we're going to jump right in and talk about why to know your numbers. And what Josh and I, as we brainstormed, this is really the top 5 sort of list that we came up with, no particular order. And they're not exclusive, but I think these are really important. So first, obviously, you want to minimize surprises. All too often, I think staff think career centers are just like any other benefit or program they offer. They're busy. They don't really have time to dig in to figure out what makes a career center successful, and they set it and forget it. And what can happen is then you're behind the 8 ball. So if there's a revenue dip, you get questions from the person you report to or your CEO. You find somebody from your accounting team asking you, and you're just not sure where to go to find the answers. So none of us like that. And when you're regularly keeping up with it, you can minimize the surprises and be ready when questions arise. The second is that it allows
Just
you
a
to,
quick point,
oh,
Jennifer, that
yeah,
also too, great using metrics in finding friction points, right, in user experience. So sometimes if you see a particular metric drop off, where it used to be strong, you may have introduced a friction point, or maybe you see a metric that you feel should be stronger, and we can look at that user experience and look for ways to remove friction to bring that number back up.
yeah, I love that. And all that really is around maximizing that career center investment and strengthening that value proposition by reducing friction when you find it. Um, so in terms of the why, again, you do want to minimize surprises, but you also want to set and track SMART goals. And you can't do that if you don't even know where you're starting from, right? You can't move what you don't measure. We've all heard about that. Josh is starting to talk about some of those other 2 reasons about strengthening your value proposition, and having real numbers can make a difference. We all, as consumers, want to know who else is using this? Is anyone using this? How many? How much? And that's what numbers give you when you're trying to speak to your job seekers and your employers. And there's also ways to make the case internally to make your career center more than just a silo, but to actually use it. And numbers can help you make the case that your colleagues can find benefit in it, and that larger using it to reach larger strategic goals can happen when you look at numbers. And then the last reason that we came up with, and I want to give Josh that opportunity again to come in and follow on all of these, but really is to gain those insights about your industry and your trend. John Graham used to say, and he ran ASAE for many years, and he used to look at this as sort of that canary in the coal mine, so to speak. It really is a resource for signals about the industry or profession you're representing, and we are all tasked with trying to figure that out and go where the ball is going. And so the Career Center can be a place to do that. So Josh, I know you've got some other thoughts on this. What do you see as you think about the reasons?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, in terms of industry insights, I think there's a lot of things that we can garner by looking at our numbers. We can what job posts are becoming, or roles are increasing in frequency. One of the things that I think is sometimes I find it very interesting and underutilized is search term report. I think that really that tells us two things: what our members or our users are looking for, and if and if it's something that we don't have, it tells us what's missing as well, right? So, sometimes, if we utilize that for to identify what our members need, but we also want to use that to make sure we're actually delivering the other part of that. So if they're searching for roles within our industry that aren't necessarily in our career center, then maybe we want to make sure we're looking for and focusing some of that sales effort on specific roles or direction to make sure we're filling and making sure we're connecting those dots for the user.
Yeah. And I am going to I hit so I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare again. That's what happens when you try and press too many buttons. So we're going to try this again. Here we go. There we go. So we've talked about knowing your numbers. And the next thing we want to dive into is what numbers to track. We know this is sometimes a question.
Your
So,
speaker notes are on the screen, Jennifer.
oh,
Actually in front of the screen.
huh, that's interesting. Yeah. So, boy, it's going to be one of those days, guys. Here we go. Let's try it again. Here we go. We'll share. How about that? Is this working now?
You're good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Whew, good. Well, you guys know I prepared. That's good, right? So here are the numbers to track. And we bucket these into basic usage, engagement, and revenue. And these are really critical for Career Center success. These are the metrics that, as the client success team, and of course, Josh with his expertise, as we were thinking about what should we be reporting on to our clients, these are the areas that we identified as being the right ones. And the basic data really speaks to that need and utility of the Career Center among your job seekers and your employers. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the number of registered job seekers, the number of registered employers, and not just the registered recruiters, but how many companies they're representing. That can be helpful. The number of jobs that are posted. And so that's your basic usage. You need employers posting jobs, job seekers registering, applying for jobs. Those are the kinds of metrics. Engagement data is really about how effective the Career Center is in terms of bringing people in, right, as that talent management and career management site for your audience. So those metrics include things like how many of your registered job seekers have completed profiles, how many have uploaded a resume, how many have made themselves visible. One of the big values for an employer is a resume database that doesn't just have you don't just want to tout how many registered job seekers you have, but actually how many are visible in your resume database. And that's what the value there. And of course, revenue tells you if it's generating non-dues revenue for you, if that's a goal. Now, I want to note that you want to be sure as you're thinking about numbers, some organizations view their career center primarily through the lens of revenue generation. Then you know what you're going to focus on. But not everyone does. That can be one of many reasons why you have a career center. And so looking at the net revenue and looking at that over your fiscal year is some of the metrics that you want to track along with revenue mix. So looking at what's selling and what are you selling more enhanced or more premium packages, those kinds of things. So Josh has done a ton of looking at data. And so what else would you, as you think about numbers to track, Josh, any other comments here?
No, I mean, I think there are a few things that really, for me, are long-term metrics that have long-term impact. Things like job alerts, right? Like that's our ability to continue to communicate with a member with updated jobs. So that gives us the opportunity to have an ongoing touch point. So really encouraging members to sign up for those job alerts and making that a significant call to action and driving that metric, I think is really impactful. From an engagement standpoint, I really think an underutilized one is for identifying highly engaged people is a reference request. Right, people who go in and are using the system to request references are really engaged with the system, and so I think that's a highly it's a high indicator of somebody who's deeply engaged, and maybe an indicator of somebody of a success story of somebody we can create a case study on later.
Now, those are great additional metrics to look at in that bucket. It's really who is doing beyond the minimum and using the platform in that way in your career center. So that's great. And we want to also talk today about where you find your metrics. And so the primary place for some of those, especially those basic usage metrics, is in your SmartWay admin portal. Hopefully you know what that means. And if you don't, and you're like, what the heck is SmartWay? Don't worry, just drop a note in the chat or contact your client success manager and they can make sure you're set up. But you can see a quick screenshot here. And when you go to your career center, go to that domain, put in /SmartWay, and then log in using your email address and whatever password you set. And then you can go to the reports area. So you'll see the nav menu on the left. You can go to reports to find information and reports that you can pull on your job seekers, your employers, and more there. So we really encourage you to explore that. And the revenue reports area is where you're going to find the specific revenue reports for each month. And we just want to note that we're always open to your feedback about metrics and reporting. We think we've got a pretty good offering in terms of being able to get what you need, but we know every organization is unique, and you all may have definitely do have great ideas for metrics and reporting. So if you see something you need, again, just let us know. You can contact your client success manager. We can forward that on to our team, and we have an active tech roadmap and idea hopper that's always being curated. So would love to hear from you on that. So there's some additional analytics as well. So Josh, you want to talk about those?
Yeah, well, just a couple of things. A recent rollout is we've added some additional tracking parameters to widgets, job widgets specifically in SmartWay. So as you can see, if you and we've also, just to update, moved where widgets are, or put them under the publishing suite under marketing. So now widgets are marketing, publishing suite, job widgets, and then at the bottom you'll see tracking parameters where you'll be able to fill in UTM codes specifically for tracking individual widgets. And so one of the places that this came into play was within the HireLogic integration, although this is certainly not the only place that this comes into play, but several customers were putting the widgets in specific communities filtered to specific jobs for those communities, and wanted to be able to track the traffic by widget or community out of those specific pages. So this gives you the very granular ability to track jobs widgets based on the page that you're putting it on, and so very sort of specific filtering ability to match your tracking to your filter for your widget. Additionally, you'll also see here there is for those who do have the HireLogic integration, UTM coding for tracking clicks out of the HireLogic feed. So you'll see community _feed in that that little example there, that is clicks from the Higher Logic integration feed. So just a quick update on some additional analytics pieces. Also, we do have granular tracking parameters for most of our activities within the platform. So if you are utilizing Google Analytics and you want some additional visibility on that, feel free to touch base with your CSM, and they'll help you sort of walk through any of that as needed.
So, Josh, can you quick check the chat? I don't know that there are any questions that have come in, but before we move on,
Is there a way to pull all time or year-to-date revenue reports customized from with versus month to month? I'm not sure. Maybe Danielle. I'm not sure I can speak to that directly, or Jennifer, maybe you can.
Yeah, that's a good question, Danielle. I think.
Yeah, I can jump in. So there,
Yeah.
so the revenue report, like that you'll see on there, it's like a month. It's just a monthly report because that's to do with like the payments that you're getting, to break that down by month. But there are some additional billing and revenue reports in your like the general reporting section, so that you would be able to gather that.
Yeah, and I just would say that is if you have any questions around revenue or revenue numbers, you can contact your client success manager and we will be able to talk you through that, and can always pull a report as needed. So great question. Anything else?
And John, I was going to say, it's just
Oh.
for everybody to, just so you like some of the reports in, or actually all of the reports in these, whether it's the analytics or revenue that are beyond like just the monthly revenue reports that are on the pages, you'll be able to do filter for any sort of time frame. I know some people don't actually realize that you can do that at times, but when you're playing around with the reports, you can set time frames.
Yes, definitely. That's a great point. You'll see a little filters box up to the right there. So yeah, again, test around, see what you think, and then we can always address questions. We are going to be at more of a high level about where to find things, but again, you do have resources available to you as you have specific questions. So anything else? All right, let's move on. So how to read your numbers. This is sometimes it seems really straightforward, but the key is to know that context matters. So what's big and small is really going to be relative. It's relative to a lot of things about your organization, about your talent market, and the amount of effort you're putting into making your career center go. So all of those things are going to be at play when you think about your numbers. If you are representing a really niche talent community, smaller numbers may be perfectly reasonable. Whereas if you are representing a very large industry or profession, then you may be expecting bigger numbers. And the other thing to note is trends, and Cheryl commented on this. So there are times, unlike some of our other programs that we run, where our career centers may ebb and flow in different patterns than we may be used to. And so that doesn't, what that can mean is pointing out some areas of opportunity. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail in a bit. So we've got some tips about context and how to read your numbers. So the first one that we wanted to talk about is knowing yourself. That's really important. So I started to talk about this a little bit, right? Are you a large organization? Are you really small in terms of staff size, in terms of budget, in terms of member size? Are you somewhere in between? Questions to ask can also include, are you the only player in your industry or profession, or are there other associations or other organizations you're competing against? And do you represent a really small talent market like I was talking about, or much bigger? And how's your industry or profession doing? Some, like nursing, are very seasonal. Others, the print industry, it can be facing some headwinds, for example, and then they're brand new for a while. We can all think about the Cannabis Industry Association, right? There's new things happening out there where new associations are being formed. Josh, other things on this know yourself tip?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number of members versus the sort of the total market, right? Like how this goes back to the size, but it's not necessarily just size of organization, but size of organization within that marketplace. Because I think that certainly adds some context to your point. And then who are your members? And I think we touch on this a little bit more. But I think that's an important piece, which is what is it that makes your members talented, right? Or stand out in a talent market.
Yep, absolutely. And I think along those lines, knowing your members also includes knowing their career seeking behavior or their career management behavior. So for example, in the association sector, which is the Career Center audience that I worked with, there's still a lot of tenure. But in some other industries, it's much more mobile. And so you can expect more apply clicks, more views, because folks are used to moving much more frequently. Or perhaps there's disruption going on and they're really going to need you. And so it's a great opportunity. So those are some additional ways of looking at that. So another tactical tip we have for you is knowing your competition. So know thyself first, and then know your competition. So we talked about that a little bit about other associations. Are you really standing at the crossroads, the nexus of your industry or profession? Or maybe you're one of many, and so you do have a lot of direct competitors. Then there's layers of competition, and we all have those as well. Indeed is our competitor. LinkedIn can be our competitor, not direct, but it's important to understand your employers are spending their recruitment dollar, have a lot of choices to do that. And so in some ways, that is that competitor. There may also be some regional players. And then there may be direct niche boards. And that's what, as associations, what we're offering. And what makes us really great is that we're offering employers this access to these really niche, high quality pools of talent. So there's a lot of value there, but don't be fooled into thinking there's no competition. And don't be fooled too, because one of the things about knowing your competition is to understand, maybe try and get some insight on how much of the market is out there, how many job postings. But sometimes you can look at another site and think, gosh, they have 800 job postings and I have 50 job postings. What's going on? And they may be actually getting jobs through what's called backfill, where they're not actually getting those jobs direct posted to them. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about how to go about figuring out how many job postings might be out there for you. So Josh, what about knowing your competition when you think about that?
I think that one of the things that I'm seeing in my experience, and I saw it happen in the community space too, and it actually speaks to the benefit of working with an association job board from the employer standpoint. Your competitors, the big boards, they're becoming less effective, and just because they're big doesn't mean they're good. And so much like in the community space where communities used to be even association hosted on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on other social media groups, and slowly the association market has grabbed back a hold of that space, right, and brought it back into their digital ecoscape and owned it and taken control of that niche in order to protect their members, right, to give them privacy and to protect their conversations and their data. And and so we see very much that same thing happening in the job board space, right? So you are actually at a competitive advantage, not being the big guys, by being smaller and by paying attention to your members. You actually set yourself apart from the competition. So just again, this is one of those trends and things that we see in the data, that I think supports, knowing your competition, but also, how do you use that information, right? Because it's not always that because you have competition that puts you at a disadvantage. Sometimes it certainly puts you at an advantage.
Right. And all of these tips are really around how to read your numbers. And when you know yourself and you know your competition, and then we're next going to talk about knowing your value proposition, having a sense, this is going to help give you that baseline and some good information to start with that you can be building upon as your numbers and plugging numbers into. So this tip is really about what makes, now that you've thought about your own organization, you've thought about your competition. So what makes you unique compared to other, and we put job boards, but career centers serving your space. Why are your members really amazing at their jobs?
Yep.
Right. And a lot of time there's about credentialing and other things that you're giving them that are specific to your members. How are you positioning yourselves? Are you maybe higher cost because it's harder to hire? Are you lower cost? And how does your pricing and your packaging really set you apart from what you've seen out there? And Josh, I know you had a lot of great thoughts on this. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, first of all, your members are your asset, right? So especially, their talent, their skills, their certifications, their education, they're dedicated, and you all have that information and that knowledge and that understanding. And so that really helps you position yourself as sort of the owner of that skill set and the access to that specialized knowledge. And then in terms of pricing and packaging, I think one of the missed opportunities is in looking across this digital ecoscape we have. And we often, especially in the community space, I know there's ad space that often goes unused. Right. And so maybe we can expand those upsell advertising or display opportunities to include other platforms that might utilize it, learning management center, your community space, or if we're having a career webinar, or if we're tying another piece of career together somewhere else, right? Utilize the display space in the career center to drive the traffic towards that webinar, right? Are we fully utilizing? And that's not really pricing and packaging as much as utilizing our assets, but really what I'm saying here is make sure we fully take advantage of the features and functions that we have the ability to either offset costs or drive revenue.
yeah, and I think Josh, you're really getting to something that is the opportunity. Is your career center has a value proposition for the users, right? Your external audiences. So it's valuable for employers in your sector or industry who need to find people. It's valuable for job seekers, and I'm going to use that broadly, both your members, but you also so many of you allow non-members to access. So you're actually creating an on-ramp into your industry, your profession, your organization. And then, of course, your members, it's valuable because it's another way you're demonstrating value. And we know that support for the career journey is a main reason why people join associations. So you're demonstrating that through this. And then there's internal value. And I think that's what you're getting to, Josh, which is this is part of your, what Josh terms as your digital ecoscape, your tech stack, and it can really be a great channel. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but your colleagues may not be aware of the ways in which you can deliver help to them, getting their messages out through the Career Center and really help lift those boats. So we're going to talk about that a little more.
Jennifer, we have a
Yeah.
couple questions in the chat that I just want to
Great.
speak to
Yeah,
quickly.
let's cover that.
Cheryl asked to explain backfill a little bit more.
Sure.
Cheryl, backfill is essentially where, and we do this as well. We can add jobs to the Career Center that aren't paid for. They're not uploaded, but it allows the Career Center to appear full and useful for the user as we get up and running, right? So it's just a way to fill out the job site with content, but it doesn't generate revenue. So it looks a little bit better than it is in terms of revenue. So that was the point that Jennifer was trying to bring out. And then pricing and packaging. Doesn't Web Scribble set that, not the association? It depends on the relationship. We have multiple ways that we work, but also we do have upsell opportunities in digital space, other things that we can look at, and if there are opportunities within your digital ecoscape, we'd love to talk about those and ways to maximize revenue. So yeah, I think there's conversations to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So keep them coming in. Love that. And one of the things we want to round out this section with about how to read your numbers, use your numbers, is about making data informed decisions. So here's a don't and a do. And one of the biggest things that I've seen, and this is pre my work with Web Scribble as well as while I've been with Web Scribble, is associations will often just assume that and the Career Center is an example, but that all their programs just rise. They just build in a 2% no matter what, or 5% or 10% increase. And they're not really looking at the numbers. So when you look at your numbers and how to use them, you can use them to make really good decisions about what this is going to do for your organization going forward in the next fiscal year, even specifically. So, this allows you to assess current trends and conditions, really think about how much support you want to give to reach whatever goals you set, and really consider your all-in costs. A lot of times people aren't really thinking about, they only look at your gross. People only look at their gross and they forget to think about the net. And so those are just some basics there to help you make those data informed decisions. Josh, what else do you got on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we forget that there's actually a huge market in play here, right? And outside of any one of our control, and to the point they just recently re-released market numbers, completely shifting the numbers, changing what jobs created, the whole so there are forces here outside of our control that we need to take into consideration when we're planning and setting expectations. And so I think it's an important piece to remember, and an important reason to utilize the data and to check and back to the point of not getting surprised. Especially if you're checking data regularly, you'll probably see trends that. And it may take a while to be like, oh, this is an indicator, and start to learn what works for your organization. But you will start to find those indicators, and some of them are clear and obvious. But you'll find the ones that work for your individual organization, and it is important to note that there's market forces in play.
Absolutely, yes. And I think you've hit on another reason why to know your numbers. It is a great professional development opportunity. And in this era of data and being data knowledgeable, this is a great place to do that. So many of you may have seen this before. This is a tip sheet, I guess you would say, that we developed to highlight, again, those real canary in the coal mine kind of data points. They're indicators about what's happening in your job market. And it gives you ideas on what you can do if they're increasing, if they're decreasing. We've got more content to go, and to be sure we get it all in, we're not going to linger a lot on this slide, but you will get the recording and deck and everything. So Josh, anything else you want to highlight here in particular?
No, I mean, I think this is the analysis piece, right? Like, this is taking a look at the number, figuring out like if it's going up, what does that mean? If it's going down, what does that mean? And then using that to react.
Yeah. So we're gonna segue. We've talked about where to find your numbers, how to look at your numbers. This is really this last part. We really want to highlight how you can use your numbers. And we came up with 3 use cases in particular that we're going to highlight here. Josh has some additional ones. And they're not the only ones. So if you don't hear a way that you're actually using your numbers, please post that in the chat, because we'd love to know how people are doing this. But one of the primary ways is with your C-suite and your board. Again, every Friday evening, for the entire 10 years, actually for the entire time, no, the full 10 years I was at ASAE, I reported to the CEO every night. I sent a little quick update every Friday to him about some of the key numbers. And it was because he really found this valuable as one of the many pieces of information he consumed to keep his fingers on the pulse of what's going on. We would include information in executive reports and in board reports about this program and how it was helping the organization. I know for some of you that may not exist now, but I also know your team involved with governance and board reporting is probably interested in anything they can provide to the board that is meaty and useful to them. And we always found that board members were very interested in what was going on with career and talent management. So that's a story you can tell. The middle graphic is really about unsiloing your thinking. And Josh started talking about this, which is creating logical cross connections between all these platforms that we have. We're like Disney World, but we don't give people a map. And we talked about the Higher Logic Thrive Jobs integration. That's one way that we're helping our clients make that connection. And Josh talked about using your Career Center to surface ads regarding upcoming programs, membership campaigns, etc. So that I think is really big. And I want to make sure, Josh, I know you've got a lot of great ideas on that. So what are you thinking in terms of unsiloing and
Yeah, I mean, I
happen?
think the way I think about this is that we use these numbers to create initiatives, right? Like there are specific things, and one of the things I see organizations struggle with is trying to move all these numbers at once, right? And it's near impossible. And so what I suggest is like choose a number, pick an initiative, right? So if the idea is let's get more people into our webinars, then we look across our ecoscape, and we connect the dots and use the pieces in order to drive that goal. So we've got some ad space in the Career Center. We've got some in our community, in our learning management. We're also sending out a newsletter or an email. Are we connecting all of those pieces so that we're ultimately driving, I'm saying connect all those pieces, right, and purposefully put them together to drive that goal. So you have the ability to sort of choose a metric of importance and point all of these tools at it in order to move that number. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a metric that is exclusive to the Career Center.
Yeah, that's great. And you're really tying this broadly, right? So we do need to think about goals for our career center to keep it vibrant and healthy, to keep that revenue model working, and
Absolutely.
the engagement model working, right? To really keep it a vibrant place, a digital place. And then we can also, as Josh is saying, really think about what is our organization's strategic plan, and then the goals within that plan, and where can we be using the Career Center to help achieve those. And really this last graphic on the right is about using your numbers to really move the needle. I was thinking about, I love this because it's like, let's move the needle towards happy, right? You can have happy employers when you have more job seekers who have public profiles, more job seekers who are viewing and applying your jobs. You can have happy job seekers when you have career tools and you actually have content that helps them succeed. You can have happy members because they have a really robust benefit when you use your numbers to boost what's happening in your career center. Your colleagues love, I'm telling you, my colleagues in marketing were thrilled when they learned, oh, I don't have to pay for this space and it's getting seen by how many people? Because usually your Google Analytics will show how much traffic your career center gets. Your
You could
boss is
use,
happy too. Go ahead, Josh.
yeah, you use your metrics to identify potential success stories to highlight
Yeah,
in new member prospect. Look at your metrics. Who's in your career center but not a member? Are you converting them to membership?
right. Exactly. And your whoever you're reporting to, if you're not already the CEO, that person is always wanting to know that there is success and that there's really intentionality being applied in managing the programs under their purview. And you can show that with the number, and your boards love to see good news stories too. So in the time that we have left, we've got some information. We just want to talk about how do you get started. And really, it's three things. It's setting up your timing. How frequently are you going to check? More than once a year, we would recommend, at least quarterly. Tools, and you don't have to be fancy. I know sometimes that can get in the way. We think, oh, if you have Power BI and a big business analytics unit and everything, bravo. But if you don't, you can just use an Excel spreadsheet. That's fine.
Some of
Uh,
our biggest clients use an
no, go
Excel.
ahead.
Yeah, some of our biggest clients still use it's the sometimes that's the best way to spread keep information in the right hands.
That's
That
right. And Josh really made this point so well, but first you want to establish baselines, pick something, use a fiscal year time frame, be sure if it's revenue, look at your net, not your gross, and then just track for 6 months and see where you are. And of course, over the course of your fiscal year. And then from there, you can tell, okay, these are my patterns. You're going to start figuring out where you can go from there. So I want to challenge you. I know Josh and I were thinking about how to make this really practical. So here's our challenge, which is find a way to use the data that you have on hand and tell the story. Tell it to a colleague, tell it to your boss, tell it in a marketing piece, but really find a way to use that data. So Josh, anything else to help people get started that you want to be sure we don't miss?
I know people get I get a lot of requests for benchmarks, right? Industry benchmarks, right? And the struggle with the association market specifically is that they are so different, even while serving the same industry. And so really and this is the same advice I gave when I was at Higher Logic, which is you have to benchmark against yourself. So you have to pick the metrics that are important, look at over a time period, to Jennifer's point, set your benchmarks and then move those benchmarks.
Yeah.
There isn't going to be another benchmark that is going to be appropriate or better for you to set yourself against. Yes, industry numbers will give you some context, but that's all it will give you. It does not give you a place to move forward from. It just provides you context. The place to move forward from is setting your own baselines and your own benchmarks, and then reasonable goals and move from those, and then focused on specific metrics, move them one at a time, and you'll find success.
Yeah. And if you're starting from single digits, go to double digits, go to right, and just keep plugging away. I think that's the key. That's such a great point. So I saw some notes in the chat. Final questions. I mean, I saw some chat indicators that there was chat. Don't know if there are questions.
Don't see any final questions yet.
Okay, so while you're looking at that, we're going to move through in the last few minutes. We just want to give you some key takeaways. So this is how I always think about metrics and reporting, and so much of what we do, it's like flossing, right? So it's a good habit, and you just need to set it up and maintain it as you go. We talked about this, right? Start now, start somewhere. Just get going. Don't let the enemy, the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think we can get in our own way sometime. It's good stewardship. I found this in a blog. I put the little blog reference, but it really is a way, we're trying to manage these programs as well as we can so that the organization is as good as it can be across time. And so while you're there, it's really a great way to sustain the program, the Career Center, and whether good times or bad, you've got goals, you've got things you're working towards, and that's always more engaging for us as staff, I think. And just remember, we're here to help you. Our team wants to know what you're thinking, and we want to help you. And to that end, we want your feedback. We really invite it. So you can see an email address, wsacademy@webscribble.com. If you have feedback, follow-up questions, let us know. We also want to make sure we don't end without inviting you to our next session every month this year. This is our inaugural year for the Web Scribble Academy, and we have had a program, and October is going to be no exception. So you can go to this bit.ly link, sign up for the rest of the year. And in fact, we're getting ready to load up some 2025 programming as well, because it has been, there's been a lot of interest in it. So sign up. And if you can't make it, it's okay, but at least you'll be signed up and you can get follow-on information. And our next session, I think, will be of interest. It's forecasting and planning, and we know this is budget season for many folks. So with that, that's it. We are done with our stuff. We're happy to stay on the line for a little bit with you. If you still have questions, Josh, was there anything in the chat?
I don't think so.
Cheryl, I see a reaction there. I'm gonna stop sharing, and we can go into a gallery view. People are welcome to come off their screen if they want. Anne, thank you. Really glad you were here.
Great questions.
Yeah, love the questions. Thank you so much. And again, at the top of the hour, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording here.